Hey, Block 6, Milena here, giving you the rest of these Genesis 1-2 notes. So we started off, or left off at Eve. Talking about Eve means mother of all the living. And in Genesis 2, we learn more about the relationship between man and woman. Woman is created to be a helper suited to Adam. This is not a subordinate or like a servant relationship. The church fathers have this beautiful explanation where they said, woman was made not from man's feet, because that would mean she was meant to serve him. And she was made not from man's head, because that would mean she was meant to rule him. She was made from man's side, because they are meant to stand next to each other. So, yeah, man and woman are meant to be equal partners, or another self. Keep in mind Adam's first reaction to Eve. This one, at last, is bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh. They see in one another something that completes them, and they recognize each other in this way that Adam hadn't been able to recognize himself in the giraffe or the tiger, the elephant. So another thing you should know, this is, especially because it's an all-girls school, you might encounter people in the world, you probably will encounter people in the world who will use the Bible to try and justify sexism. They'll say woman was created to be subordinate to man. And they'll maybe trot out this verse and say like, see, God made him that way. That is not how it's meant in the Bible. In fact, if you take the same word in the original Hebrew and look at when else it's used in the Old Testament, it's used 20-some times, like 19 of the times that it's used to describe God acting as a helper for the Israelites, like coming to battle and being the divine assistance that they need. So it doesn't imply subordinate status. The word means, like a helpmate, partner. And so if you ever meet somebody who tries to say like, see, the Bible says women are supposed to be serving men, you can slap them verbally, of course, because it's just not true. And last part on these notes, gardeners. In Genesis 1 and Genesis 2, we see a little glimpse here of what man was originally meant to do work-wise. So humans are made to be caretakers of creation. God says, fill the earth and subdue it, have dominion over the fish and the birds and the animals. God took the man, settled him in the garden to cultivate and care for it. The old understanding of Adam was that he was the first high priest of creation. And his job, if he hadn't sinned, would have been to go throughout the whole world and Edenize the world. Make all the world like the Garden of Eden, where God's good order and creation extends to every part of creation. And so that still describes who we are meant to be today. Stewards of creation. A steward is someone who doesn't own the thing that they're caring for, but they are given full responsibility and authority over it. So if you watch Downton Abbey, the steward of the manor would be Mr. Carson, who is like the head servant. Everyone has to report to him, and he has the freedom to dispose of people, like fire them or recommend that they be fired, or recommend people for promotion, who will be doing what and when and in what way. That's humans' role with all of creation. So it's our job to make sure that everything in creation, to the best of our ability, is as awesome as possible. So it's not enough just to say don't pollute. We also have to look at all the species of animals and plants and preserve diversity as much as we can. So taking endangered species and rehabilitating their numbers and reintroducing them into the wild. It's a great example of how we can be stewards of creation. And one thing I love about being Catholic is, the Catholic Church on this point is not just great at talking the talk. It walks the walk. Vatican City, the smallest country in the world, it's where the Pope lives, and it's in the middle of Rome. It's its own little city-state within Rome. It is the first zero-emissions country in the world. That means all of its energy that it gets from like solar energy, wind energy, or even like traditional power plants, that they offset the pollution with carbon credits. All the power that they get, it's putting out no pollution. It's amazing. And yeah, so you go into Vatican City and you'll see 14th century buildings with 21st century solar technology on top. And yeah, it's filled with the world's most gorgeous artwork. I just love it. So you don't need to know that for the test or anything, but if you ever hear people saying like, oh, the Catholic Church, what have they done for the environment lately? Well, this is actually a point where the Catholic Church really has been awesome. Alright, so that's end of Genesis 1-2. Pick it up with the next video I'm making on Genesis 3 and 4. Adios.